Hi, and welcome to another Excel demo with Rich Kerr. In this scenario, we're going to use the drop function to retrieve a data set that only contains the top 10 values from the data set that you see. We'll say the top 10 values or top 10 records based on their value in the value column, right? So whichever account has the highest value, we want the top 10. So we need to do a couple of things. We first need to produce a data set that has the data in that sort order, uh, and then from that we can extract only the top 10 records. So of course you could just sort this data set, right? You could come here and you could sort by the value column, and then you could use the drop function, which we're going to talk about in a minute, to drop all but the top 10 values. But I don't want to have to sort this data set. I mean, maybe I need to keep it in account order number, or maybe I want to sometimes sort it by the account open date or the account manager. So I want functionality that will always retrieve the top 10 values based on the data in column C, regardless as to how I may have sorted the main data set. So we'll set that up first, an extraction of the data that's always sorted by the value column, and that'll be step one. And then step two, from that data set, we'll extract only the top 10 records. So first, I'm going to skip over a column, and we'll do equals sort open paren. Now, this data set, I named it account data. So that whole range is called account data, but of course, you could just select A1 through E, 1,000 or 10,000 or whatever the last row is. But I named my array account data just for simplicity. So that's that array there. That's that range, comma, and sort index is asking by which column number you wish to sort. So since I want to sort by column C, that would be 3. Since we start in column A, C is the third column. And then comma, the default is to go from ascending to descending, so smallest to largest. So the sort feature is listed as optional. So if you don't put something here, it's going to go smallest to largest. We can see from the menu that a -1 is how you indicate largest to smallest. So that's it. So now this is going to produce a copy of that data, but with it sorted by column C. So that's going to be our step one. So we can see we got a bunch of data. It looks like we need some additional formatting over here, which is fine. We'll format that column C there, and then column K also has dates in it, and we want to format all that as short date. Okay, so we can see that it's extracting the top value. So like if I went anywhere in this list and added a value of 10 million, we can see that now becomes the top record at the very top of this sorted version of that data set. Okay, so how do I get it so that only the top 10 show up? So let's look at our original formula. What I want to do is I want to drop all but the top 10, or that's one way we can do it. So I'm going to use my drop function. I'm going to edit this formula and say drop open paren. So the drop function needs an array, which we're going to be using the sorted version of this array, which we've produced with this existing formula that's sorting. So this whole sort of the account data is going to serve as my array, comma. So how many rows do you want to drop from this data set? Well, maybe that's got to be dynamic, because what if there's 500 rows, you want to drop the last 490 rows? But if it's 1,000 rows, you want to drop the last 990 in order to leave the top 10. So I need to find out how many rows there are in the data set, and then you have to specify whether you're dropping, the number that you're selecting from the bottom or from the top. And I'll show you how to do it. First, how many rows are we dropping? So I'm going to say count open paren, and I'll use my count function against column C, right? Because the count function tests for numeric values or accounts numeric values. So whatever that number is, we want to say minus 10. So if there's 1,000 rows, it's going to drop, the top 990, and that's an issue because I don't want it to just I don't want it to drop the top 990 rows because that would get rid of my biggest ones. So I want it to drop the bottom 990. So in other words, if there's 1,000 entries in this list, saying 1,000 minus 10 would give me 990, but a negative 990 would say drop them from the bottom. I don't want to take 990 off the top. I want to drop 990 from the bottom. So the way you indicate the number of rows needs to come from the bottom is whatever number you're specifying needs to be a negative. So I'm going to put this count function in a set of parentheses and put a negative in front of it. Right? So that's how many rows we want it to drop. Now you can stop there. There's another parameter in terms of columns, like if you didn't want one or more of the columns from that original range, you can specify how many columns you wish to drop. But I'm going to keep all the columns, so I'm going to do a close paren and hit enter. So now we can see that I've only got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 rows. So I have the top 10 values from this list. And again, it doesn't matter how many entries we have. Like if I look down at the bottom, so there were 502 rows, so 501 rows of data. So with our formula, what we did was we told it count how many entries there are in column C. So that's 501 entries. Minus 10 would give us 491. And if we hadn't put the minus sign in, it would have taken the top 491 rows off, right? And then we'd be left with the ones at the bottom. And because it's sorted within this formula, we would have gotten the 10 smallest values. In fact, let's show that. I'm going to take this minus sign off the top, off of this counting function. So now when we hit enter, we get the 10 smallest accounts in this data set, because it's taking off the top 990 or 491 entries. So these are the 10 smallest entries. In fact, let's prove that. If we sort this original data set by column C so we can see that. So if we sort largest to smallest, and we see that we've got Natasha Romanoff down through Natasha Romanoff 23, 329 through 1572 at the bottom. Yep. So those are the last 10 entries if we're sorting by descending order, and we're taking the last 10 entries. But we want to take the first 10 entries, so we make this a negative, so it knows to remove or drop rows from the bottom, and now we have the top 10 entries in this list. That's it. So combining the sort function with drop, we can extract the top 10 items from a data set, and even if you have more data, it's going to stay with the top 10. And of course, you could change this number, right? If we go into this formula and say we want the top 5 values or accounts, we just change that to a 5, and now we have the top 5 entries. Or I want the top 20 accounts from the data set. So you could just come and change that number, and then you're set to go. I hope you find it useful. Please check in again soon for more Excel tips with Rich Kerr. Have a productive day.